Welcome back. It's ECM. It's Resistance Live for the 20th of May, 2025. Nice to see you all as usual. We have a new escalation in rising fascism in America that we have to talk about today, namely the indictment of my representative, LaMonice McIver, last night by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of New Jersey, currently run by interim head Alina Habba. This is really bad, and there's kind of no way to sugarcoat this. It is absolutely another very large step in the direction of silencing dissent and enforcement and in preventing Congress from doing its job. So we have a bunch of details to hop into there. First things first, today for our visually challenged viewers, I'm wearing a cream-colored turtleneck. My hair is down. I am a pink-skinned, green-eyed, dirty, blonde-haired woman, and I am in front of my bookshelf and my yellow utility cart. And I'm coming to you, as always, from occupied Muncie, Lenape, and Mohegan Land. Okay, so late last night, we learned that, as had been signaled on Saturday, the DOJ had obtained an indictment against LaMonice McIver. I want everybody to understand the context of this because it's really important. You all will remember that Newark Mayor Ross Baraka was arrested outside of the Delaney Detention Center in Newark, New Jersey. That's an ICE detention facility that was shut down, that was reopened by the Department of Homeland Security as soon as Trump took office or shortly thereafter. Has been a huge bone of contention here in northern New Jersey, and has also been something where the reported conditions inside the detention center have been really not great. So when Ross Baraka showed up to conduct his state duty to ensure that the facility was being run in a safe and clean manner, first, he was arrested by ICE. And there's been a lot of speculation about this, that this was a setup because they had several dozen allegedly ICE officials, who knows, in those now familiar face masks. And they arrested Ross Baraka allegedly for trespassing. If you have seen the footage of that, behind him was LaMonice McIver. And she was asking questions about why Ross Baraka was being arrested. And there is a moment where she is shoved against a fence by an ICE officer. Now, the charges against Ross Baraka have been dropped. This is what's a little crazy about this. Last night, Alina Habba announced that the charges against Ross Baraka by the U.S. Attorney for the District of New Jersey are being just dismissed because obviously he wasn't trespassing, he was doing his job. While simultaneously, Congress has oversight authority. And one of the things that Congress can do, and we've seen this multiple times, is ask for tours of ICE detention facilities to make sure that they are being run in a lawful manner. Ironically enough, after Ross Baraka was arrested, a tour of the Delaney detention facility took place. And the Congress people who were there on site, including not just LaMonice McIver, but Bonnie Watson Coleman, and others, were given a tour of the facility. Okay. There's no dispute and no evidence that LaMonice McIver was engaged in obstruction, that she was engaged in interfering with law enforcement, that she had done anything, literally anything at all, outside of her congressional duty. The most that she could be accused of, given the footage that we have, is raising her voice in objection to the arrest of Ross Baraka. That's it. And that, by the way, my friends, is not a crime. So the reason, we can speculate about this, why the DOJ, through Alina Habba, has decided to do this is multifold. The first is that LaMonice McIver is a rising star of the Democratic Party. She was, prior to her election in November, the chairperson of the Newark City Council, and for several years has truly been a primary advocate for Newark, New Jersey, which, by the way, is a predominantly Black city. She's also young, and as a result, her voice has been amplified a lot on TikTok and other platforms as a part of exactly what happened at the Delaney Detention Center. My personal speculation is that they're doing this and going after her in part because she is not as well known as some other figures inside the party. And they may be assuming that LaMonice McIver is kind of, not going to be a big stink. Well, they've got another thing coming, because if you've heard Representative McIver speak, as I have now many times, you know that she is an incredibly compelling advocate. she and other young, newly electeds like Jasmine Crockett, like AOC, have built a name for themselves in their ferocious advocacy for the people that they represent. LaMonice McIver is no different, okay? Now, the motivation for all of this is a real question. And frankly, one of the things that concerns me about this the most is that it is now requiring LaMonice McIver to defend herself in a court of law rather than doing her duty to the American people. And that's part of the purpose for it, okay? But the other part of the purpose for it is to send a message to other members of Congress that if they seek to exercise their oversight duty over what ICE is doing, they themselves may be arrested and prosecuted. It is very, very bad. So if you want to do something about this today, and you're going to have a bunch of reasons to call your reps today, I'm just warning you. But one thing you could do is call LaMonice McIver's office and express your support. Okay, that is something that I think anybody should do, whether or not she's your rep. The second thing you can do is call your rep or your senators and ask what they plan to do to end this malicious and unfounded prosecution. Because one of the things that we need here is congressional support, senatorial support, to put pressure on the administration to stop this charade. All it would take is a phone call from someone in Trump's sphere to Pam Bondi, to Alina Habba to end this. It is strategically also, I'll just point this out, a very grave error. Because right now, just in the same way that support for Ross Baraka's pre-existing campaign for the New Jersey governor is growing, I can't even tell you how many signs there are right now in my neighborhood supporting Ross Baraka for governor that weren't there 2 weeks ago. This is also something that is likely to cause serious, serious consternation in Representative McIver's district, which is a very substantial district, which, by the way, also has a lot of immigrants in it. One of the things that people don't know about New Jersey is that we have more immigrants in New Jersey per capita than all but one other state inside the United States. We are a high density immigrant population. She was doing her job. She is tremendously well respected. And we need to make our voices heard to get this ended. She does not deserve this. She has committed no crime. Okay, so the louder we get about this, the more we speak out about it, the more likely it is that this whole thing will come to an end. Now, there are a number of representatives and senators who have already spoken out on her behalf. They include people like Jamie Raskin. Statements have been issued from other senior leaders in the party saying that this will not stand. We have to continue to make an enormous stink about this because it is absolutely not right. Okay, so you should call your rep, your senators today and ask what they plan to do to end this, because it's very clear that she's committed no crime. Like, seriously, you can get a little loud about this. All right. The other thing that we have to talk about today, speaking of New Jersey, is what happened yesterday on two specific fronts. The first is on the vote to confirm Charles Kushner as one of Trump's ambassadors. Charles Kushner, for those who don't remember, is not only Jared Kushner's father, but is also a felon. Not that I'm not throwing shade at anybody who's been convicted of a felony. I always have to say this now because lots of people are convicted of felonies when they've done nothing wrong. Okay. So I kind of actually should not be using the word felon as a pejorative, but he is convicted of crimes, including blackmail, right? He set up his brother with a prostitute and then sent the photographs to his wife in order to get some business deal out of the way. I can't even remember all the details. No less than Chris Christie has condemned Charles Kushner in no uncertain terms. And Cory Booker voted to confirm Charles Kushner yesterday. To say that I am disappointed is an understatement. And it doesn't matter that Charles Kushner has been a big donor in New Jersey politics. There is no way he should be in any position of authority in the Trump administration, period. Like, ever. So I'm very disappointed about that. And unfortunately, Cory Booker was the only Democrat who voted for that confirmation, which is also deeply questionable in my mind. In addition to that, though, we had more Democrats let us down yesterday with regard to the crypto bill, also known as the Genius Bill. So what a lot of people don't understand about this bill is that it essentially ends the regulation and oversight of cryptocurrency. And 16 Democrats voted in favor of it. What that means is that all of Trump's deals, where he is now benefiting corruptly from the purchases of his meme coins and Melania's meme coins and other meme coins that they have created to benefit him, which, by the way, is an off-the-books way for foreign interests to funnel money into his personal bank accounts, okay? By voting for this, they essentially eliminated oversight of cryptocurrency, including to the president of the United States. And 16 Democrats voted in favor of it, including some that I was very shocked to see on that list, like John Ossoff, like Senator Elsa Brooks. And of course, Cory Booker was on that list as well. Very disturbing, very disturbing. And frankly, I don't know which is worse. The idea that they may not have realized it, that what it was doing was essentially greenlighting the capacity of Trump to benefit from his corruption ad nauseum, ad infinitum, or whether they knew what it would do and they voted in favor of it anyway. So one of the things that I have to say about this whole thing, because, you know, the leaders of Indivisible were all over this last night and this morning, justifiably so. I was all over this last night and this morning, and justifiably so. Very, very deeply disappointed in this vote. And nonetheless, I woke up this morning after having posted about it last night, and I had people on the feed going like, you should stop attacking Democrats for voting this way. As long as you're attacking Democrats, you're doing work for fascists. Okay, so I just have to say one thing about this. Okay, we are allowed to be disappointed. We don't get better leaders by sweeping bad votes under the rug. And one of the things that we have to kind of come to terms with now, which we've been talking about a lot here, is that the Democratic Party, and particularly its leadership, are not fighting back in the way that they should be. You can rest assured that if the shoe was on the other foot, which it has been, for instance, last night, there's no way that we would have passed cloture on a bill that benefited a Democratic president. There's no way that a Republican wouldn't have stood up and invoked the filibuster. So where we are right now is just really disappointing. And the way we get better leaders is by talking about it, right? We don't have to kind of like gaslight the people who read us on social media by saying everything's fine when it's not. Okay, this is not fine. Democrats should not have voted for this bill. Not a single Democrat should have voted for this bill. And yet 16 were on board. And that's really problematic, like really problematic. I'm also just going to say this, like at the moment, I am, and I know I'm not alone in this, I am very deeply concerned about the lack of response from Democratic leadership, the sense that they are completely out of touch with how the rest of us feel about what's happening in the country. This thing of like listening to the Democratic consultant class and poll testing everything instead of actually pointing out that like we're living in a fascist dictatorship and the coup has already happened. And that the way that we fight back is by holding the line on literally everything where power still resides. Right? We don't give in. We don't give them a crumb and assume they're not going to ask for more. By the way, have you ever been in a relationship with a malignant narcissist? It doesn't work that way. We don't gain benefits by voting for their nominees. That's not how it works. You're not going to get centrist voters in favor of you for voting in favor of someone who has taken away like their Medicaid, which is what's looming right now. You're not going to get centrist voters by like approving nominees who everybody knows are wildly unqualified. Like just this morning, Kristi Noem testified in Congress that she thinks habeas corpus is what permits Donald Trump to round people up and deport them. Oh my God. Habeas corpus, by the way, for those who might not know the answer, is actually the ability to invoke the courts to release you from unjustified incarceration. So, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with expressing your frustration. And frankly, I think if we don't express our frustration when we have it, we're actually enabling the Democratic Party to be more complicit than they are right now. So one of the things that I want people to just be thoughtful about, okay, is that we can amplify people who are doing really good work right now, like progressive Democrats who care. Chris Van Hollen is showing up, right? We can amplify people like AOC who are speaking truth, right? We can amplify people like Jasmine Crockett and LaMonice McIver. We can amplify people who are doing good work. And simultaneously, we are allowed to voice our disappointment at the leaders who are failing us routinely right now in the way that they vote. And I just have to say one other thing. I've been a fan of Cory Booker since he was the mayor of Newark. I am so disgusted right now with what appears to be like an intentional attempt to sway public opinion and then vote in the opposite way. It was just a matter of weeks ago that we were all applauding this like 24-hour speech that he gave on the floor of the Senate. Remember that? And since that time, his votes have been in favor, in many instances, of the Trump administration's policies. Like he did this sit-down event on the steps of the Capitol with Hakeem Jeffries. Remember that? And yet, the next vote that he takes is in favor of Trump policies. So this is a moment where we've got to be like very clear on something. And I think this is a really important thing to observe, okay? Just in the same way that Rachel Maddow's whole philosophy during the first Trump administration was watch what they do, not what they say. We have to adopt that same philosophy right now with Democrats. Because if what we're doing is simply looking at what they're doing and assuming that they mean it and not seeing it through the lens of whether or not it's performance, we're not actually holding them accountable in the same way that we need to hold everyone accountable, okay? A 25-hour filibuster on the floor of the Senate is meaningless if you are going to vote in favor of Trump's nominees, if you're going to vote in favor of the bills that his people want passed, if you're going to vote in favor of giving him the means to his own corruption through crypto. Those gestures are meaningless if you do not back them up with action. And this is one reason, by the way, why I am so invested right now in making sure that the activism that we engage in is not performance, that it is actually designed to affect the halls of power, that it is actually designed to move power into the hands of the people. So I'm very frustrated, as you can tell. And also simultaneously, I think it's really, really, really important that we make our voices heard, not just when we are upset with Trump, but also when we are upset with the leadership of our own party, because they are not doing their jobs, right? There is so much more that they could be doing. They could be like essentially shutting down the Senate in the same way that Mitch McConnell did when when Merrick Garland was nominated to the Supreme Court. They shut it down. Not a single thing, no interviews, no conversations, no votes for the duration of Obama's tenure. Okay. And I know we don't have control of the Senate in the same way that the Republicans did in that era, but there's still procedural things that we can do. Like the filibuster is still there. Cloture is still there. There's literally no excuse for allowing any of his policies or people to get approved, period. If you can stand in the breach, if you can throw sand in the gears, the Democratic Party should be doing it. And any sign that they are not doing that is a clear sign that they do not understand the gravity of where we are. Okay, I'm going to stop ranting, but as you can tell, I'm like upset about it. Okay, speaking of votes, the budget bill is something that you need to call the Hill about urgently, okay? Not just because the budget is seeking to cut, 13 million people's Medicaid benefits, and not just because it cuts social benefits that are desperately needed in favor of giving the rich more tax breaks, but also because of this. The Republicans have managed to sneak a clause into the budget that would end the capacity of the federal courts to hold parties in contempt for violating temporary restraining orders and injunctions. What this means, essentially, if it passes, okay, if it's like passed by the House, passed by the Senate, signed into law by Donald Trump, is that the federal courts will not be able to enforce their orders against the Trump administration. Every injunction that's been issued to stop people from being deported, every temporary restraining order that stopped them from invading another government agency, every permanent injunction that has said what DOJ did here is illegal would be unenforceable. Unenforceable. That provision has to go in addition to everything else that is in the budget. The budget in this current form cannot pass. Cannot pass. Okay, so you need to make your calls today, and you should be personal about it. And, yes, the phones are answered by interns, but you should feel free to express emotion about what it would mean if your Medicaid benefits were cut, what it would mean to your friends and family, what it would mean to have programs cut that you rely on from the federal government. By the way, Forbes has done a whole breakdown of what's contained inside this budget deal. I mean, they're cutting like profoundly necessary services that people need to survive. They're cutting services that benefit children. So, again, this is a moment to make your voice heard. And I just want to point out that, if you have nothing else to talk about, you can talk about this provision that would stop the courts from being able to enforce their orders against the Trump administration. Because that, by the way, my friends, I know we all talk about the end of the rule of law. That's the end of the rule of law. If courts can't enforce injunctions for illegal behavior, then there's no backstop of any kind to any form of illegality by this administration. It can't pass. It can't. Period. You should go make your voices heard. Okay. Many of you know that I did, as a part of our educational series yesterday, a breakdown of the Tesla takedown protest movement and why it is so successful. I hope you all got a chance to see it. I want to just make one thing really clear here for those of you who are local organizers, who maybe are doing local organizing where you live, school boards, county councils, city councils, and the like. Please, yes, you should go watch it, but also I want to give you one really big takeaway. Get your messaging really clear. And as you're deciding how you are going to move forward in your own activism, please be very mindful right now of your asks. This, by the way, is also a really good advice for when you're calling your representative or your senator, okay? Write down what you're asking for before you pick up the phone and dial. Because everybody gets nervous when they make those phone calls, even little old me. I get nervous when I call Andy Kim and Cory Booker. You should know what your ask is before you call. Just in the same way that when you show up to protest, you should know what the demands are of the organizers. Tesla takedown has been really effective in this. And one of the things that we have to be thinking about in this era is making sure that our asks are tight, that they are media ready, meaning it's not a full paragraph of asks. What are we asking for today? We're asking for LaMonice McIver's case to be dropped. We're asking for the budget bill to be voted down, and particularly that provision when it comes to the issue of contempt enforcement in the federal courts. We're asking why did you vote in favor of the Genius Bill, right? And express your displeasure at that. These are very basic asks. And I just want to remind everybody that if your messaging isn't clear, you're not going to make your point. This is as true for mass protests as it is for individual calls. So please be focused on your messaging. All right. It really matters now more than it ever has before. Okay. If you like what we're doing here, please hit the thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe here on the channel. I'll also just remind all of you that you can get your hands on our free guide on how to lead change in this era without burning out. It's already in the show notes below this broadcast, and I will also drop it in a comment. You should go download that. Okay. And also, I'm going to remind you that if you happen to be somebody who feels you're here for a big purpose right now and you can't figure out how to do it, you should consider applying for a free strategy call about the Ripple Effect Institute, because I'm just going to tell you, it's an amazing place to be. Incredible organizers working nationwide on really creating big legacy level generational change, even in this really scary era. And I would love to see some more of you in it. Okay. Super, super good stuff. And lastly, as always, feel free to share this broadcast with anybody you know who may benefit from it. Mad thanks to our Patreon subscribers. Please head on over there and support this broadcast if you have not yet already done so. Subscription started as little as $5 a month, and you get questions and bonus broadcasts. And I will catch you all here tomorrow at regular time. All right. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, everybody. Hang in there. Bye.